Hey friends, in this video I'm going to talk about lactate and what happens when you go from easy work to more intense work and why training easy helps all your high intensity efforts. So what is lactate? It's a byproduct of carbohydrate metabolism. We're always making a little bit because we're always using a little bit of carbs for energy. So even at rest, we have about 0.7, 0.8 millimoles of lactate. And as a side note, it's been shown that people that are struggling with their cardiometabolic health have high resting levels of lactate. So they have 2 to 3 times lactate at rest than someone who's healthy would have. And that just goes to show that dealing with lactate, dealing with our glucose is really important part of our whole system. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll kind of get why that is and why it's important that we all train aerobic fitness, not just runners, not just bikers, not just people that race, everybody. So when we're at rest, we have a little bit of lactate. When we start going into low intensity, zone 1, super easy. Zone 2, you can sustain it for a long time. It's not that hard. You're essentially, if you look at the graph, you're going to be accumulating a little bit more lactate than rest, but not that much. And your body can deal with that because we recycle lactate and use it as fuel. And this happens in the slow twitch muscle fibers of the mitochondria. So we're always kind of burning carbs and a little bit of fat. We're not just solely burning fat just because it's low intensity, even though I wish we were. We're not. It's a ratio, and everyone's ratio is a little bit different depending on your fitness, your background, and all of that. Your low intensity, your zone 2, let's call it, and you're accumulating a little bit of lactate, but it's not having a net increase because you're able to recycle that lactate and deal with it and use it as energy. And the point at which just before it's going to start bumping up, like lactate is going to start bumping up, the point before that is your zone 2. And so when you get into zone 3, we're at a higher intensity. Let's talk about running. We're going faster, we're going harder, and we're using more of our fast twitch muscle fibers, which are highly glycolytic. They use a different process. And they can't burn fat in the same way because burning fat is actually kind of a slow process in comparison to using glucose for energy. And so though our body prefers to burn fat at low intensities, it can't do it at high intensities because just the demand is too high. And so we're not really in that system anymore. We're in a different system, different muscle fiber, and we are utilizing our glucose a lot more. And then we're producing way more lactate. And this zone's kind of your lactate threshold. So it's the pace that you can do where you're producing more lactate, but you're still able to kind of deal with it. But as you keep going in that intensity, that lactate is going to keep rising. And it goes to the point of around 4 millimoles is considered the onset of blood lactate. And after that, it kind of continues to rise. And the reason that is because the adjacent slow twitch muscle fiber mitochondria, adjacent to the fast twitch muscle fiber, it is what actually deals with the lactate from the fast twitch, and it's saturated and it can't do it anymore because it's done, like it's busy, and that lactate has to go somewhere and it's going to go into the bloodstream and then it's going to shoot up. So that lactate threshold we can only sustain for a certain amount of time. You can't do that pace forever because of what I just said. And so 15, 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, that's the pace that most people can sustain in their threshold. That's where races are won or beyond. They're not won in low intensity work, but in a second, I'll doubly explain why the low intensity work helps the high intensity work. So onset of blood lactate, 4 millimoles, it's going up, 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 and then we're going to reach our VO2 max. So everything underneath this has still been aerobic training, aerobic exercise. This is not anaerobic, even though it hurts and it's hard. After your VO2, so that's your maximum ability to utilize oxygen and to do these processes, which is such a high intensity that we can only do that for a certain amount of minutes, like under 10 minutes. And then now we're in anaerobic. That's your like zone 5, 6, 7, depends what you're looking at. That's your 10-second, 100-meter, I wish 10-second, 100-meter dash. That's your like 1 rep max. That's your phosphocreatine system. you aren't even utilizing the same glycolytic system anymore. It's different and you're needing energy so quickly. This system is what we use, but it can't do it for very long, can't sustain it. So that's like your true sprints. If you're using your other systems, you might be hurting a lot, but it's not anaerobic. It's still aerobic. And so easy work helps the high intensity work because you're going to have a way higher density of mitochondria in your slow twitch fibers, and they're going to be efficient, they're flexible, they're good at their job, they can do it. And they're adjacent to the fast twitch. The fast twitch muscle fiber is utilizing glucose, producing ATP, byproduct is lactate, happening very quickly, lots of lactate, going into the slow twitch muscle fiber, which is beside it, which is helping to deal with that lactate, and it can be saturated at some point. It's got enough dealing with it, it can't deal with it quick enough, and then the lactate is going to go into the bloodstream, and then lactate is going to rise. So the fitter you get, the more you can deal with your lactate, and the later that threshold comes on, the more you can do with less lactate, the faster you can go, and all of that. So that curve shifts with training, and that's the goal. And people who are like elite athletes, they have coaches, they do training, like they like do their training in a very specific way, because we know races aren't won in all the easy work. But just for people that are just trying to be healthy and just do all the things, like this is sort of a background on like, what is lactate? I've heard of this lactic acid thing. It's like we get a hydrogen ion, and that hydrogen ion is what's considered the acid. That's what actually we feel, and that's what hurts. So we got to get better at using our lactate. We got to do more easy work. And if you're someone who runs and you're like puffing and puffing right away, and even though you're running really slow and you're not really feeling like you can go that long, that type of person needs to do more base work. And then once you get to a point where you're trying to do harder runs and you're realizing like those are what your struggle at, then you have to train that zone. Like we know we want to train all the zones kind of. So I hope that makes sense. I'm not like, I don't have notes around me. I'm just kind of like talking this through how it makes sense to me in my head to explain it. But again, reading it, seeing visuals and stuff is really helpful to understand it. So let me know if you need help with that. And yeah, thanks for watching.